Paul, despite the recent emphasis on skill-based hiring, organizations like your own are hiring. We're starting to learn they're hiring more candidates that deem themselves more likable than having skills. And we thought we'd reach out to a business strategist and a CEO of Cornerstone Business Services, Scott Bushkie, to fill us in on this very important question. Are companies hiring more towards the vibes that people give out or their skills? Scott, you're on with Rocky and Paul.
Good morning. Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so listen, what is it? Are companies hiring because of vibes that the people give out, or are they hiring because of the skills that the people have?
Well, I find the study pretty shocking and pretty disturbing because I think, what happened is that, back in the day, 20, 30, 40 years ago, everybody hired more off of vibes and personality. Hey, they're likable. Let's bring them on board. And then it switched to there's so many different assessments out there that you can use, Myers-Briggs and so many others. And my only thought of where this has gone is that, it swung from I'm only hired for personality to I'm only going to take and I lost them there. So now I'm using these assessments, and now I'm only using these assessments and throwing my thoughts aside. And that hasn't worked out either. So now they've gone all the way back to, well, the heck with the assessments, or if they're a small company, well, I don't want to spend the $500 or $1,000 to see how this is, what this assessment would look like for this person. I'm going to go cheaper and not do the assessments and just go on my gut. And I'll tell you that by going just with your gut, what our experiences have been is that it's a fail. It's going to fail more times than it's going to be a positive. And it's somewhere in the middle really is where the balance is of, personality and experience and bringing that mix together.
So is that what we should really be reading into the study, or are job candidates focusing on the wrong things? Is it truly the mix of good personality, which creates less of a toxic work atmosphere, and skill, or can you train somebody on those skills?
Yeah, I think certain skills, certain skills to do a job you can train, but if a person's a jerk, or they're not going to follow the rules, you're not going to train that or untrain that. That's just how they're wired. So you're right that you don't want to just look at, boy, this person's got a great background and they look really good on paper, but they're going to be a toxic to your environment or your culture, or they don't follow the sales process. The best salesperson that creates havoc on the company. Do you fire them or do you keep them? Mentality. It's really something where you have to find that happy medium of it's part art and it's part science, and bringing those two together for your firm, and then modifying that and tweaking that over time to see what results you get.
So Scott, I have the privilege of leading a movie theater chain, and so we employ a lot of folks that are guest facing. And
right.
What I say is that the most important characteristic to be a great Imagine teammate is to care about our guest. But certainly we do assessments as well, because honestly, I think an assessment can tell whether or not someone in fact has those interpersonal skills. It's fascinating. Every time I've taken a Myers-Briggs test, it comes back the same way. Leopards don't change their stripes over time.
Right. No, I think you're absolutely right. And then it's where it just depends on what level of position are you hiring for. But what I've seen too many people do is go, well, especially the small to medium-sized firms that don't have a true HR person or department, and it's maybe the owner or a key employee doing the hiring is like, well, do we really want to spend $500 on an assessment? Well, let's save the cost and we'll hire this person. I'm sure they'll be fine. And then you find out that they're in a PIP program, 90 days down the road, and you end up firing them, and you got to go through the whole hiring process again, and it ends up costing you tens of thousands of dollars versus the $500 for that assessment. So you're right. You need to have the personality. You need to have the make sure that the values of the employee, their personal values, match up with the company's values. But then also those assessments that can just look at it from an objective standpoint, because I've seen people go, man, this is a great fit, and the assessment tells me something completely different. And sometimes I've gone against the assessment, and it hasn't worked out very well in most cases.
I think you make a very important point that the cost of a hiring mistake is substantial. I think the cost of turnover is something that business is not very good at measuring, And we all know it's significant. The disruption, the absence of institutional knowledge, the cost of training, all those things go into the factor of, when you make a hiring decision, you really want it to be a good one.
No, you're absolutely right. And not only is it a cost to the company, but what we're in the mergers and acquisitions business, and we help business owners that are in the $5 to $150 million range sell their companies. And I can tell you that those that have a management team, the owners work themselves out of the business, they've got good trained employees, good tenure, versus someone where the owner's the business and there's a bunch of worker bees and they just keep, it's a toxic environment. They just, it's a revolving door of employees leaving. Even if those sales and cash flows were the same, the first company with a good management team would get multiple offers and sell for a significant premium versus the company where the owner's the business and they've got complete turnover. They might not be saleable at all, even though they're making $1 million or $2 million of EBITDA or cash flow. It's what's transferable to that next buyer. And we've seen that in multiple cases where if the owner is the business and they haven't done a good job of building out a management team or key employees, then it will significantly affect the value of the business or make it not saleable at all.
So so when you're advising your clients, especially on the buy side, you're telling them as part of your diligence, look at turnover. That's an important diligence item, I take it.
It's a great point.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, 100%. Look at turnover, look at the tenure, look at, who's on the management team, how long have they been there, when are they going to retire? If the management team's the same age as the owner and they're all near retirement age, you've got to take that into account of that risk. And that's where as a buyer, you look at what are those single points of failure, and the owner being the business is one of the big ones that they need to look at.
Listen, Scott, we've got about a minute and a half, and I'm going to switch the paradigm of the discussion a little bit here because we've talked about employing, but we now in Michigan, and we've got a great state with a lot of incredible people, but our unemployment rate is starting to inch up a little bit here. So people are looking for new jobs or changing jobs, taking buyouts and changing. What do you suggest to the people that are in the job market? In about a minute, fill us in. If I were coming to you and saying, I need your advice, I'm looking for a job. You got 1 minute. What do you tell them?
Yeah, I would say, take your time, do the research on that company. If you're just spraying resumes all over the place, you're not going to be very exciting to me. But if you know what my company is and what we do and why you're interested in working here and what experience you can bring to my company and what that value should transfer into, that's important to me. And then also, I think the big one that most people don't do is take a look at what are the values of the company and how do your personal values match up to that company. If you know my values, my company, and it matches to yours, that will set you apart from many of the other candidates.
He's the author of Finish Strong, Sell Your Business on Your Own Terms, a business strategist and CEO of Cornerstone Business Services, none other than Scott Bushkie. Thank you very much for joining us on All Talk with Paul Glantz and Rocky Rachkowski sitting in for Kevin Dietz.